All right, joining us today on Pirate Radio Live, former East Carolina cornerback. He is the color analyst for Pirate Home Games on the Pirate Sports Network. Kevin Monroe joining us to talk some football. Kevin, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good, Cliff. How about yourself?
Doing great. Enjoyed the bye week. Now getting ready to get back into Pirate football coming up this Saturday. Our Bud Light pregame tailgate begins 8 a.m., first noon game of the year. And I will be with you after the game on the U.S. Sailor fifth quarter call-in show. Kevin, Charlotte's so far back now. We'll bring it up, but no need to rehash it play by play. But it feels like a big week. Well, I've heard like players only meeting, potentially going to a new starting quarterback with Caden Hauser. It's kind of like they're throwing a lot at the wall here midway through the season. That putting a lot of eggs in this Army basket. They want to get this one, get back on track after being embarrassed a couple weeks ago. So when you hear things like that, new quarterback, players only meeting, how do you feel about it?
Well, um, starting with the new quarterback, I would say that, when you come over as a potential starting quarterback from, Michigan State, and, as a transfer, and you hear the quarterback situation that you're going to was pretty bad the year before, you're probably expecting to start. And then, of course, they signed Garcia afterwards, and you're considered 1 and 1A, right? All the way through camp, they said, these guys are interchangeable. We can't really pick one. But then all of a sudden, the guy in front of you is leading the nation in interceptions, and you still haven't gotten a shot. I would imagine that Hauser has been pretty disappointed. I don't know him personally. I'm just speaking out as how I would feel to not have gotten a start or not have gotten a shot to this point. So I think it's only right. It doesn't mean that he's better. We don't know what he can do, but I think it's only right that he gets a chance to run this offense. So I'll start there and say that I'm not surprised. They're giving him the opportunity because, you're 3-3. You're still in good shape in terms of making a bowl, having a run at the conference or whatever. You're not out of it by any means. So while you're still in it, give yourself your best chance to win. And then in terms of this week and the players only meeting, players only meetings are great. The only thing about them is they usually happen out of desperation, right? They usually happen when
Yeah.
things are going so bad that the players have to get together. So I hate that it happened that way, but I think it shows that they're showing accountability for where they stand in this situation. I mean, certainly the defense could be better, and if that means Blake Harrell making different calls, great. Certainly the offense could be better if that means John David Baker making better calls, fine. And then in totality, it all falls under Coach Houston. So you can throw all of this at the feet of the coaches, but once a play is called, these guys have to produce. They have to make plays on the field. And I don't know if I've seen a whole lot of that. We saw a lot of missed tackles in the Charlotte game. We saw a lot of times where receivers seem to be in the same spot and balls being thrown in between two receivers. So there's definitely some things going on. Some missed blocks. There's definitely some things going on the field that the coaches can't do anything about. The players have to fix. So to have that players only meeting, to have some accountability, I think it's a good thing to see. The only thing about this game though is that you go to play Army. This is not a rah rah go as hard as you can go, take somebody's head off kind of game. You do that, and the dive man just went past you 50 yards out for a touchdown. Or the or
Yeah.
the wide receiver that was pretending like he was blocking is now running down the sideline ready to catch the pass. This is an alignment assignment type game. So you can be all pumped up and say, we're going to go get this game and blah, blah, blah. But if you aren't disciplined, they'll beat you by 50 points. And so hopefully, they're locked in as much mentally as they are physically because it's going to take that kind of game.
One more thing on the team, the players themselves. After the game a couple Saturdays ago, Holton Ahlers said he wanted to hear about some screaming in the locker room, some yelling, some accountability, some what the hell's going on. And there's a lot of different ways to go about it. But Kevin, I as a former player in that locker room, sometimes did you have those moments or need to have those types of moments?
You know what? The worst loss I was a part of as a player was at Syracuse in the Carrier Dome versus Donovan McNabb. I think we lost 56-0. And it was my first college start. And it was like, holy cow, what just happened? Um, I don't know that there was a bunch of yelling and screaming as much as it was, we got to get better because that was a much better team than we are. And they beat us in every facet of the game. So I can't say that I've been in a situation where there's just been a bunch of. Now, what I have been a part of is finger pointing, right? When the offense is playing really well and the defense is not,
Right.
or vice versa. I've seen that go on. But for a total team meltdown like Charlotte was, I've not been a part of that, and I can see why you'd want to see some screaming, but I actually don't know who it'd be from. Like, who is playing so they can scream at anybody? You know what I
Good
mean?
point. Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see how that turns out.
One more thing on Charlotte, the quitting allegations from the Charlotte players that they saw ECU players quit. I asked Elijah Morris about that this week, and I look at Elijah as a guy that is not going to quit out there. I mean, he's a walk on turn leader. 4 years later. So I asked him point blank about it, and he said, "I'm not going to speak on that, but I will say the film doesn't lie, and we got a lot to clean up." Basically, maybe admitting he saw some things he didn't like without coming out and saying it. So, Kevin, that might be one of the worst things you can say about a team or a player, right? That they're quitting on the field. So that was
Yeah.
kind of tough to hear. And hearing Elijah's response, maybe he saw some things he didn't want to see again from ECU.
So let's look at it like this. I doubt there was times. Let's say on defense, I doubt there was times where the play was coming a player's way and he didn't do everything he could to make a play. Now, that's if it's on my side, we're talking 4 or 5 or 6 hats on that side of the field. Question is, how hard were the people playing on the other side of the field, right?
Right.
How many guys were running to the football to help make that tackle when they were down by 30 points? And that's where the film doesn't lie. I'm often telling my boys, you are to play until the whistle is blown, regardless of whether the play is on your side or not, regardless of whether the ball's being thrown to you or not. You keep blocking, you find some work, you go do something. Because when a coach turns that film on and he's watching specifically you, he wants to see what number one did from the beginning to the end of that play. And so if you're just standing around, that's not the type of player they want. And so I think what I hear Elijah saying is, when you turn them on, you don't see 11 hats sprinting to the football all game long. I doubt that the people that were involved in the play weren't trying their
Right.
best. Probably weren't as successful as they liked to be in terms of making the actual tackle. But I didn't see anybody just say, I'm not going to make this tackle. That type of attitude.
Kevin Monroe joining us. Kevin, maybe if it was another team other than Army, this would be more relevant. But feels like it's a recipe for an Army loss. And I'll bring all these examples in. They get a number beside their name. First of all, they're first time top 25 all year. While their coach is on the Pat McAfee show and all these other shows, ECU had a bye week to prepare, another extra week for Army. And in a lot of these cases, we saw it with Northern Illinois and UNLV. We see it each and every year. These teams get ranked for the first time, and immediately, boom, they're gone out of the top 25 after a loss. It's a little different because it is Army. Another thing is they have played a very weak schedule. East Carolina will be the best team they've played this year. I think that's pretty easy to say. So, kind of sprinkle all that in. It is a nice little recipe for a Pirate upset this weekend.
I was going to say those few things. One, they haven't played anybody, which, listen, I don't consider East Carolina anybody either because we've not proven that we are a great team by any means. So we could go on that list of nobodies, but they've not played a team that's put much pressure on them. Their defensive stats are a little bit skewed because their offense has been on the field so much. Their defense hadn't had to do a whole lot. When they've been out there, they've been successful, but it's not like they've been out there for half the game or anything like that. So I'll just say that for these two reasons, one of the hardest things to take in sports is a pat on the back for everyone to be telling you how good you are. I mean, I went through it in '99. We were 5-0. Everybody telling us how great we were. We're ranked in the country. That's the hardest thing to take because you're like, we just beat Miami and South Carolina and Duke. I'm not worried about Southern Miss, or I'm not worried about Tulane or UAB or whatever. And so that's how your mindset starts to get. The other thing is, Army, you know exactly what they're going to do on offense. They aren't hiding it. They're coming right at you. This is not going to be one of these games where you show up and they're running completely different offense or they have a completely different formation than you saw on film. That's not what they do. It's been on film for 100 years. You know exactly what's coming at you. And so that all goes to their detriment. Now, if East Carolina is prepared, if East Carolina can match them man for man at the line of scrimmage, if East Carolina doesn't fall asleep in the back end when they go and pop a big pass, then they can be in this game and they can win this game. But they haven't shown us anything recently defensively to let you think that they're going to stop a team that runs the ball really, really well. So it all depends on how the coaching has been this weekend, how they've taken the coaching, because we know that Coach Harrell knows all about the option offense. He's coached at places that have run the triple option. So I expect them to be mentally ready. If they take that out on the field and execute it physically, I think Army's going to see a much better team than they saw on film a week ago.
Kevin Monroe joining us. Kevin, each and every week on Wednesdays, Ken Watlington, WNCT Channel 9, joins us and we continue for some reason to rank the teams in the state of North Carolina, and it gets worse and worse every week. It's so bad that Ken refuses to let us put ECU at the bottom because he's got North Carolina at the bottom. And then you got to figure out, well, Charlotte. I think we had Charlotte all the way at number 2 this week because we dropped NC State down. Like it's crazy. It's awful. It's about the worst I've ever seen. But you're there in the triangle, Kevin, and this could be it for Mac Brown. You think he goes out on his own terms, but if not, they might would run him out. Dave Dorn at NC State. I guess he's okay, but they were a top 25 team before going into this year. Outside of Duke, everybody in North Carolina really struggling right now.
Yeah, and I mean, App State fans are ready to be like, "What's going on? What are we doing?" So,
yep.
I completely agree. The problem with Mac Brown is he's always gotten all the players that he wants. Right? They have unbelievable facilities. He's got a coaching staff that knows how to recruit. If you're a big time player in the state of North Carolina and North Carolina offers you, most of the time that's where you go. They don't lose North Carolina kids very often, and they're also pulling in kids from Virginia and Tennessee and other places like that. So they get all the best players. And so when you have all the best players, you got to perform on the field. Now, I'll give them the fact that they've had some issues at quarterback in terms of injuries. You didn't go into the season expecting to be playing your second or third quarterback. That makes a huge difference, as the Pirates saw last year, and we're still dealing with it this year with quarterback issues. But that doesn't have anything to do with your defense. Giving up 70 points to James Madison and so on and so forth. It's been a struggle there. So, yeah, I would imagine that the Tar Heel faithful is ready to run Mac Brown out of town as much as he's done for the program. It's just not working right now. And so whenever something's not working, you're looking for a change. And then Dave Doran is a similar situation where they're down to a backup quarterback, and they just haven't played up to the level they'd like to play at. And even the games they've won, they've been too close. I mean, they shouldn't have played Western Carolina that close. Southern Illinois is obviously better. Having beaten Notre Dame, they're better than what they thought coming into the season. But they still shouldn't be to the caliber of NC State, and that game's too close. So they've been in some games, and Syracuse is a game they probably should win. So they've had some issues, and the state fans in general are ho-hum about life. they tend to be,
no doubt.
I work with a lot of them. They tend to be very pessimistic, and so right now they're ready for basketball season.
Kevin Monroe joining us. Kevin, got to ask you what happened on Sunday, man. The Lions are running trick plays in the fourth quarter.
You have to ask me that. You could just go past it. You could just skip over it. That's all you can do.
It's like line A, row B. I have to ask you about the Cowboys. What do you think about Dan Campbell running plays to the offensive lineman up 40 in the fourth quarter?
I was not watching the fourth quarter.
Good. Okay. Good for you.
That late in the game. I'll just say this. Offensively, there's some issues that maybe we weren't prepared for at the beginning of the year, meaning the offensive line isn't holding up the way it should be. Therefore, it looks like we have no running game. I don't think there's anything wrong with Rico Dowdle or Ezekiel Elliott. They're both running hard. They get the yards they can get. There's just not a whole lot of places to run. So they got to fix up front first. And then they got to figure out a way to get a running game going. And then they got to have a receiver step up that's not named CeeDee Lamb. And then on defense, I mean, there's no excuses. All these guys have paid millions of dollars, but we do have 4 or 5 guys injured. So, I don't know what you shouldn't give up 50 some odd points or whatever they gave up to the Lions, regardless of who's playing. I think some of those guys quit. If you're going to say that that's happening with Pirate fans, I definitely think Pirate players, some of those guys quit. But it was just a mess. And so, I'll move on from that like I moved on from the Charlotte game and see if they can bounce back.
Commanders got the Panthers this week, and the defense we put out every week, I'm terrified of any opponent. So definitely, I love our offense. Feeling a little worried about what Andy Dalton might do this weekend. But Kevin, always a lot of fun talking football with you, man. We'll reconvene, do it again. You got homecoming coming up next week with Temple. You'll be back on the call for that one. So enjoy the weekend, and let's catch up again next week, man.
Yeah, man. Appreciate it, Cliff.
And we'll